my name is Sara Dahmen, and I am the only known female coppersmith who builds copper cookware in America.
That's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
So I just want to know how. How did you get into doing that? I've seen the pictures that you sent. I posted some yesterday in promoting our conversation. Um, so how did you get into this?
I was researching um, my historical fiction novels, and one thing led to another, and I got into metals, and I became a coppersmith. It makes no sense. I know.
It makes perfect sense.
Write a book and then become a metalsmith.
So let's talk about that. So I know you're an author and you write books. So tell me a little bit about the types of books that you write, how you got into writing, what drives your passion.
I am a history geek, and so when I write, I inherently fall into researching the past, and that's kind of only always been like the skin of what I write, historical fiction. It's just my voice. I think I'm in the wrong century, and I should be living in 1830.
We're almost there with all the staying at home and sheltering in place and nothing being open and available. So kind of getting a little bit of that.
Well, that's been the most interesting part of this whole pandemic is watching people kind of fall back into the past. And all that knowledge that I thought I'd never really need except for books, people are using. I'm using it. Everybody else is using it. It's weird.
It's interesting. So I was thrown off by the coppersmithing, and so I skipped over my normal first question that I ask after people introduce themselves. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask you, what do you think people's first impression of you is?
Oh, I haven't actually ever thought of that. Probably that I'm crazy. I don't know. No, just on first blush, I don't think I make a lot of sense. I'm a woman. I live in Wisconsin. I write books and I garden and I coppersmith. Like none of that really matches. It's not like this flow where it makes sense until I explain how I got, to each place.
So let's do that. Let's explain. What was the first thing you ever remember writing?
Picture books.
So picture books about the 1830s or picture books about something else?
Actually, yeah. I still have some. They're really not good looking back. But I would write books where you draw the pictures, and then you have the bubbles over people's head like cartoons, and I'd have maybe a few sentences above that explaining what was happening. But I would set them in the 1800s, so a lot of them, like middle school. That was what I did for fun.
So tell me about the fascination with the 1800s.
Well, like I said, I'm pretty sure I'm in the wrong century. I think maybe, digging deep, my favorite movie was Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which is set in the early 1800s. Maybe that influenced me more than I realized. But I also love to read Homer, all the Greek mythology, like ancient stories. I'm sure just that whole diving into the past influenced me, and then I just happened to fall into that century more than anything else. I don't know.
I think that's really interesting. So tell me about the books that you've written then.
Ones that I've published, or I had published, they're part of a series, which again was not planned. I never planned to do a series. I never plan a lot of things.
I like when things happen organically, right? It makes it a little bit more fun. I
They're called the Flats Junction series. And the first one is Tinsmith 1865. And then the other one is Widow 1881. And they're set in the 1800s in the Dakota Territories, and they focus on women and what they went through, and kind of a very specific snapshot through their eyes.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's not adventure stories or high drama. It's a much more intimate, like, telescope into their experience. But it seems to resonate with people, and I like writing them, and it's nice to see them in print. So that's all that matters in the end, right?
Absolutely. So tell me, you say the books are about the struggles that what women went through in those times. So anything you could share about what you see, whether it's been in your research or what you've written, any correlations to things that may be very similar to the things that women may struggle with or go through today?
One that is not talked about a lot is the feeling of isolation and depression. It didn't have a name back then, but it existed. The feeling of being trapped in a role or in a social situation. I think that's still, it's not as bad as it used to be, but it still carries through all these decades. And I find that fascinating to know that it still existed even if they didn't have the dialogue for it. And if you live in a social situation that you don't have words for, that in itself creates a conflict within yourself, you know?
Yep.
So that's the focus usually of the book is how do people exist within the confines of their culture, but deal with very real, raw problems that are something we recognize even as a modern person or modern woman.
And you touch on the depression and the loneliness, and I think not only did it not have a name then and not wasn't really talked about and addressed, I think we still see the same thing now. I saw a very interesting meme yesterday that really resonated with me, and it said, "Make time for your wellness, or you will be forced to make time for illness."
Oh, that's beautiful.
It stuck with me all day.
You have it memorized.
Yeah, exactly. I may have been a word or two that I left out, but that was just the gist of it. And it said you have to make time for wellness, or you'll be forced to make time for illness. And I think that's the part we all forget. If we let our mental health go by the wayside, our physical body reacts to those changes too.
I think well, I know that's true. You know, that mind over matter thing is a real a reality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So since we're in this 1800s vibe, I'm gonna bring up something you put in your bio. Tell me about tell us all about the reenactments.
Oh gosh. And funny, my daughter was just asking about it last night. She said, "Can we go camping?" She means doing a reenactment. And I'm like, "No, they've all been canceled because pandemic." Um,
So that's how you got your kids into it. That you just told them you were going camping and they had to wear these great outfits.
yeah, they're like, "Oh, like like, because we never went modern camping, so the only camping they know is this reenactment atmosphere where everybody's dressed in 1800s clothes and lives in canvas tents for 5 days, and and they can walk down an alley and spend the whole day with a blacksmith. That's what they know. And so it's basically, most people know it through like Civil War reenactments. Same idea. Um, but we do fur trade because that's more indigenous to Wisconsin, I guess. We didn't have the Civil War. We didn't really even have the Revolutionary War. So if you're going to be in Wisconsin and be time period appropriate, you dress and live as if it was 1820. for a
How
whole
neat. How
weekend.
fun.
It's so fun. It's so fun.
And how many kids do you have?
Three.
Three. And do they all participate?
Oh yeah. Well, they're very young, so they don't have a choice. But but they love it. And when
Well,
we
who
have
doesn't love getting dressed up?
oh right, and living that way, and it's so fun. Um, or please don't run with a tomahawk. You know, you get to shout that across the park. You know, as your children with big fur hats and leather are like racing around with little tiny tomahawks, and it's an experience.
And then fast forward 100 years and we just say don't run with scissors.
I know, right? Same idea. But I mean, you could still do the tomahawk thing, like in modern days, if you reenact.
I love that. So, and how old are your kids? Because you said they were very young.
They're 9, 8, and 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when they get older and they have family potentially of their own, if they do, they'll say, "Kids, we're going camping," and they will not realize that camping doesn't involve not wearing costumes.
I know. Yes, camping involves tomahawks and flint napping and
The tomahawk is great. Firewood, easily
yep.
chopped.
Yes, it's just, with reenactments, they start them a little young on the chopping part. I've got videos of my 4-year-old with a tomahawk chopping wood. It, you just do. Or like I have photos of my youngest, and he's maybe 18 months two. He's like throwing tomahawks like at like targets. It's crazy.
I think that's amazing. And it must be nice too, especially now with the hustle and bustle and all of the everything at our fingertips and the instant gratification from things, to just take a step back and disconnect and connect on a more personal level with people and a real surreal level, right?
Right. And getting your hands dirty, meeting people who are willing to share their trades. Um, it's not everywhere you go that you're going to meet people who are so willing to spend hours with your kids teaching them how to make dovetail seams to do a box, like a wood box. Like they'll take their hand tools and they'll show my kids for 2 hours. It's amazing.
That's so neat. And I think that it probably, from your perspective, even instills so many different values in your kids.
Yes. It's probably unorthodox way of parenting, but
But I don't know, is it? Because it's how it started, right?
yeah, true. I mean, it's an educational way to parent, and they love it. Um, we have families who are they have kids, our kids this age, pretty young, and they're inching their ways into it too, because they just see the value. Like, we can teach our kids how to make bowls out of wood with our campfire, and they'll do that. Like they're diving into. It's really great, and the kids just thrive.
I think that kids like structure and activity, and I'm sure that provides a lot of it.
It does. It does. And they do get to. We do a lot of what they call school days. So inner city kids will come in by the thousands, and we will give them hands-on opportunities to use, old tinsmithing tools that were made in the 1760s, and we're using them at this reenactment. And these kids are coming in, they're hands-on, they're outside, they can't believe we're sleeping in these tents all weekend, and you can tell they wish they could too. You can feel the ache that they want to do this too. If they had their way, they'd camp with us, and I wish we could offer that, to all those kids.
So, since you mentioned that part of it, do you think that a little bit of what you feel from them is just their desire for the sense of community as well?
Oh, probably just to be part of it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's incredible. So we've touched on so many things: the coppersmithing, the reenactments, your involvement with your kids. This particular piece about bringing information and education to other children and through weekend retreats. what on earth could be the answer to my next question then? So, what is something that would surprise people to know about you?
In high school, I was the only girl on the all boys wrestling team.
Okay,
There.
that wasn't in the bio. So, okay. So come again.
My cousin was the wrestling coach, so that helped. But yeah, I was the only girl. I mean, I was a freshman, but I was the only girl in the conference. So, but I mean, that was before like girls really were wrestlers. There wasn't really even a girls wrestling option for the conference. I mean, girls could do it, but no one really did it. And then I tried it. Why not?
Okay, so how did you do?
Well, I wish I could go back to like being in the 121 weight class, like to lose a couple of pounds, get back down to
I
that.
get that.
I I did okay. I was never on varsity for obvious reasons. I wouldn't have won against older guys and bigger guys, but I was really good at the semi-illegal moves. Like you had to do them really fast or you'd get in trouble.
That's awesome. So did you have a winning record?
No, I didn't. I actually never finished my season because my parents put their foot down. They really did not like to see me wrestle boys. My dad had a really hard time with it, and he's just like, please turn in your equipment. I understood where he was coming from, especially as I got older.
Well, that makes sense. I get that. Well, yeah, I think sometimes dads just want their little girls to be little girls, right?
Yeah, sorry, Dad.
Well, I know that you have a very full schedule, and I am so appreciative of you taking a few minutes to connect with me and connect with all of us today. Just really quickly, last question as we wrap up. If you were out in the community, whether it's at reenactments or just doing what you do, what is something, if you could just hold up a sign and tell people one thing about you, what would you want them to know about Sara?
I do what I say I'll do, if that makes sense. Like I'll follow through, always.
Yep. Woman of your word. I like it.
Yeah. If I say I will, I will. I don't blow smoke.
Good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this was so fun. And
this was wonderful. Thank you for inviting me on here, Leslie.
Absolutely. Thank you for being willing to make the time in your busy schedule.